Hello besties and welcome back to a wrap-up season. So we know the drill. At the end of every month I just sit down and talk about all of the books I read in that month. So September was actually a pretty good reading month, honestly. I feel like I read a decent amount of books. Like compared to what I've been reading recently, I feel like I actually read a lot more than I usually do. So without further ado, let's get started. First books I read was, I started these in August, but it took me like 3 weeks to finish these books. The tandem read of Empire Storms and Tower of Dawn. Now, yes, I did the tandem read. So how I read the Throne of Glass series was I started with Assassin's Blade and then went on that way. And then when I got to these two books, I tandem read them, which honestly was a great decision. The Throne of Glass series, it's so much more than this. It's basically about our main girl Selena, who is an assassin, and she gets the chance to compete in this like challenge thing in exchange for her freedom if she wins the challenge. Just know that it's so much more than that. So I ended up giving Tower of Dawn like 4 stars, 3.5, and then Empire Storms 5 stars because this series is just incredible. Honestly, I'm so glad that I decided to do the tandem read, because if I would have read this and then had to read this, I think I would still be reading this, because this book was kind of excruciating at some points. I just didn't really have as much motivation to pick it up as I did Empire of Storms. Like I said, like I don't think I would have had any motivation to read this book, because if you didn't know, these two books are the same timeline but just following different characters. And the characters in Tower of Dawn, it was still an interesting story, but not as much happened as in Empire of Storms. With the tandem read, I liked it because I was like, when I was reading this one, I'm like, ooh, I could use a little snippet of what's going on with these characters. So then we got to read that, and going back and forth, I thought it was going to be like so hard and confusing, but it was actually fine. All I did was I looked up the reading order. I just typed in Empire Storms Tower of Dawn reading order, went to Google Images, and then it showed me it. So then I tabbed all of the switch points, and it honestly went incredible. Like 10 out of 10 experience, would so recommend. And it was just fun because you got like a break from each book and got to read about other stories and other characters, which I loved. Can't really say what these are about because this is like books 5, 6 of the series, so that's that. And then I finished off the Throne of Glass series with Kingdom of Ash, the 1,000-ish page book. This book was insane. I gave this one 5 stars. Obviously this series is incredible. It was such a good conclusion and it was so emotional. I was like crying, I was laughing, I was smiling. It wrapped up so good, and I love these characters so much. This is definitely one of my favorite series of all time. Again, can't really say much about this book since it is literally the last one in a massive series. So that is Kingdom of Ash. Definitely an incredible read. This series is so worth it. Like, I know it's like so highly debated, like the reading order, and just like intimidating because it's so long, but it is so good. So good. Please read it. And then after I read Kingdom of Ash, I went into Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Now this book has got so much hype lately, like it's actually insane. I heard people say that the author was on TikTok and she documented her whole like writing journey. I don't specifically remember really watching her TikToks. I'm sure I've seen like 1 or 2 and have a screenshot of the book somewhere deep in my camera roll. I picked this up. I love the cover. This book is basically about our main girl Payton, who she is like a thief and an ordinary, and in this world ordinaries are supposed to be banished. They are the people who don't have magic, and the king basically is like, okay, goodbye, you guys don't have magic. So he banished all of the ordinaries, so Payton like technically shouldn't be here, but she is, and she gets put into these trials where she has to pretend that she is someone who has magic, because obviously if they knew she was an ordinary, she'd be sent away. That's that. This book is heavy on the romance. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It was so fast paced and fun to read. I just didn't necessarily love the romance. It just felt a little overbearing for me. Like there was just too much flirting, too much just like that. Like I just wanted more fantasy aspects books. And the like whole trial thing, I was expecting them to be a lot more like intense and like a main part of the story, but I kind of felt like they fell flat and like weren't really developed as much as they could have been. That's that. This book is very reminiscent of the Hunger Games. I've heard some compare it to Red Queen also. There was lots of like side plot, side character things, which I loved, and just like the vibes of them being in the palace training for the trials was so fun. And then this is also part of a series, the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It is essentially YA Criminal Minds, where these like teenage prodigies are working on cold cases with the FBI. This is book 3. I really liked this one. I gave it a 4-star. It followed one of the characters I really liked in this story, and we got more into her background, which I loved learning about her. You kind of got more into that character and also just like them along on this case. I really liked the case and the setting that this one was in. I thought it was super fun and interesting. The whole like mystery thing of this book revolves around this like number sequence thing, and that just went over my head completely, but I still understood the story fully without understanding like the math reasoning. That was all in. I super recommend this series. It is like perfect if you're like in a slump or about to be in a slump, because it will get you out immediately, and the chapters are so short and her writing is just like addicting. And then last in the series was Bad Blood. This is the 4th and final book, and in this book there's also a little novella, which I will talk about after Bad Blood. So Bad Blood is the 4th book in the series, and it was definitely my favorite. I ended up giving it a 4.5 star. This series, oh my gosh, the way her brain like works is just insane. This book kind of tied everything from the first 3 books together. We got closure from stuff that was happening in the first book. Like, it just all tied into this book, and with that it was just like epic plot twists, all of that. It was so fun. At this point, when you get to the end of the series, you just have grown to love the characters so much. One thing with this book though, and I feel like all of the other books in the series did this too, was the endings wrapped up so quickly. Something massive would happen and then it'd take like a chapter to wrap up, and then it'd just tie up so quickly, so perfectly. Especially in this one, the ending went literally crazy, and I forgot that the novella was in this book, so I'm like, yeah, we still have like 100 pages left. Like, this is insane. The book literally ended like a chapter after what went down. I just felt like the ending could have been drug out a little bit more, and maybe we could have cut some of the middle out to make the ending a little bit longer, because this ending would have been like 10 times better if it would have been drug out more, I feel, because it was just insane. And then in this there's the little novella 12, which is like 150 pages maybe. I thought that this novella was a great way to end the story. It just wraps up so nicely, and it's not just like an epilogue type thing. You actually get like a little story and like mystery aspects in the novella, so I thought that was really nice, and you got more background into the characters and kind of just wrapped up any questions you had about their past and anything like that. So it was a super good little novella. 4 stars. It was definitely like a short story type thing rather than just like an epilogue novella, which I really liked. And then I went into the 7-Year Slip. This book was a 5-star read. It was incredible. It was so good. So the premise of this book is our main girl, her name is Clementine. I know, a little different. So she has been really close to her aunt her whole life, and her aunt basically gives her her old apartment. But when she gets to the apartment, there is a guy living there, and she is like confused because the timelines aren't matching up. So she eventually realizes that he is 7 years in the past, and the apartment is set 7 years in the past. So it kind of goes back and forth of her in the present, and then her when the apartment just switches to 7 years in the past. And that is so interesting because I've never read anything like that, and the whole time you're just wondering like how this works and why. And when you get to the end, it just wraps up so nicely. The romance in this story is literally incredible. The main guy is like insane. I love him. There is like just so much going on the side too with the guy and the girl, and like the kind of mystery aspect of trying to figure out how their timelines are gonna match up since they are 7 years apart technically. It was so fun, and there's just so many like underlying themes in this book, like dealing with grief, check trigger warnings for that maybe, and just like finding yourself and what you want to do with your life, and just the idea of like figuring out your life late even though there's not a set timeline, and just like feeling like you're behind. I just remember like scenes every day. Like I just think about certain scenes like all the time, or certain characters or interactions, and oh my god, it was just so cute. And when you get to the end, it just ties up perfectly and just so many things connect, and it's so cute. And then the last book I read this month was also a 5-star book. We have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. So this book was literally insane. I binged it in like 2 sittings. I could not put this book down, and I mean, I knew when Sarah J Maas blurbed the book, and also the dedication. Me when I like just now put together what something means on the cover. Anyways, so the dedication is literally to Sarah J Maas, which that's how you know it's going to be a good fantasy book, when they're like friends and Sarah J Maas is literally like a mastermind. So that's how you know. I knew I was going to love this book. I could just tell. And I freaking loved it. This book is about our main girl, Kiva. She is the prison healer. Who would have guessed? At this like really intense prison called Zalindov, I think it's called. And this prison is like, you go in, you die here. Like there is no getting out. So she has been here for 10 years. Her father basically trained her to be the prison healer, and she has now taken over. So the rebel queen comes into the prison, and she is super sick. And the queen is set to compete in these trials, and she literally can't do it because she is on her deathbed sick. So Kiva essentially volunteers to take her place in the trials, and like these trials are like deadly. You meet so many characters and you just love them so much. And I've heard some people say that like the middle chunk was boring, but to me it wasn't boring at all. If anything, it was like the best part, just like learning about how the prison worked and the other characters and Kiva's just daily life and just learning more about her. To me, that was so interesting. And the ending, oh my god, I finished this book. I was in my car sitting in a parking lot. There was people around me and I had my windows down and I was reading it and I was just like in shock. Like if I would have been like in private, I would have been screaming. I did not see it coming at all. I kind of assumed a certain part of it. I never would have ever guessed what happened, and I've heard that about the rest of the series too, that the endings just go bonk. I just feel like so much happened in it and it was just incredible. Like this may be more of a 6-star read than a 5-star. If you take anything from this video, take this book from it. So that is everything I read in the month of September. Get ready for October because we are reading all of the spooky, fantasy, cozy vibe books. If you liked this video and have read any of these books, let me know down below and let me know what is on your October TBR because I would love some spooky book recommendations. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Wishing you the best reading month in October.